Okay, thank you all for joining this session today. So, what I'll do is over the next couple of hours, I'll try to share some of the basics of artificial intelligence, its impact as I see it, and some perspectives. It's a very fast changing field to the extent is till around lunchtime today. I was making some tweaks to my presentation because I realized that I have missed out a couple of important slides. So the way we will work is I would request you to write down whatever questions or thoughts you have, and please ask me at the end of the session so that the flow is continued, because there is a mix of people here. There are some people who have some experience in IT, in information technology. Some may not have it. There are very experienced business people also out here. So what I'll do is I'll try and address all these questions so that at least there is clarity on what I've spoken.
Yes, sir.
Yes. Why is it not moving? Yeah. Hopefully, no jargon, no without jitters. So, if you come on our website, essentially on our AI page, the first thing we say is artificial intelligence is nothing but augmented intelligence. So, the word AI, artificial intelligence, is actually very, very misleading because it's more of intelligence which augments the human being, and which really is the golden key is that you need a human being to be augmented by the intelligence to work with the machines. So this is the golden key, and there is one more golden key which I will share a little later at the end of the session, or in the middle of the session, which I think is very, very important to address the fear that most people have of generative AI. In fact, Stanford University has a center called Human-Centered Artificial Intelligence, which is focused only on AI as it pertains to human beings in terms of its applications and its approach. So let's go further. We are all proud of ISRO. Thanks to ISRO technologies, we were also able to successfully have a system called Akash Tir, which was used, to ward off all attacks from China and Pakistan in the last, war. And Akash Tir, I did not know this, but it's a very, very heavily advanced AI system, to the extent where even Ajit Doval boasted a couple of days back that nothing ever touched Indian soil. No foreign object hurt any Indian asset. This was because of Akash Tir, because of the pioneering work I think which ISRO has done. So the foundation fuel for a rocket, is what makes it go up. Similarly, for AI, the foundation fuel really is data. And of course, software. Before AI came, software was the king. You could do anything with software. But after AI, software is still the king, but data really has become the kingmaker. In the sense that even till today, the more data you throw at an AI's problem, the better the AI becomes. So you have lots of data which actually acts as a kingmaker, also a queen maker. So there is a term that we use for it, which is called as big data. And it is actually this big data which is the foundation fuel for AI. So when I say big data, how much is big? So this is India's map. And last I checked, about couple of years ago, the population of India was 1.44 billion. I checked yesterday; it was 1.46 billion, which is I think 146 crores. And if I see the size of the new AI technologies, these are called as AI models. I'll tell you what a model is a little later on. So OpenAI, which is they have a model called as GPT-4, which has a size of 1.76 trillion parameters. So when I look at when I mention parameters, what do I mean? Parameters are really the knobs and controls of an AI software. Just to give an example, when you're driving, you basically have three things which are in your control. You have the steering wheel, you have the brake, and you have the accelerator. Similarly, in an AI software, these parameters are the magic buttons, you may call it, which control the AI software. What are these parameters? We'll see a little later. So OpenAI's GPT-4 model is 122 times larger than let's say, India's population. So it's a huge figure. And most of us really cannot comprehend how large that figure is. So let's look at some more, visual. So this is a visual which gives you three things. The first, it is telling you the size of the training. When I say training, see, every AI software has to be trained on data. So all the data which is found on the internet. So in the case of OpenAI 4 GPT, they used data which was 13 trillion words. So in AI, there is a technology called as token. A token is equivalent to a word. So any word and a token are almost equivalent. There is a slight technical difference. So the size of the training was 13 trillion tokens, which if you put down books together, it's the distance from Bombay to Ahmedabad. 650 kilometers is the distance from Bombay to Ahmedabad. And this is the size of the training data which was used for GPT-4. Let's look at the next parameter, which is the compute size. All of us have laptops. So a mid-size laptop, you know, if I had to continuously work on it for 7 million years, that is the size of the compute capacity, the size of the computers which were used to train OpenAI GPT-4. And on the last parameter, we have all of us are familiar with Excel. So a 1.76 trillion parameter Excel sheet is equivalent to the size of 30,000 football fields. So this is the scope, this is the size which really is not comprehensible in human terms when we look at these models. So let's go ahead. GPT-3, which was a model which came prior to GPT-4, had 175 billion parameters. Now, so notice the difference between 3 and 4. OpenAI has scaled up GPT by almost 10 times. So 175 billion parameters to 1.76 trillion parameters. So how do these huge number of parameters impact AI? So let's look at the impact of different sizes of data on AI performance. So you have a smaller rocket which will have smaller fuel. You have large rockets which will have large fuel. Similarly, as the data gets bigger in AI, the AI software performance gets better and better. Now, this has been proved to an extent scientifically by OpenAI. They actually have published a paper called as Scaling Laws of AI, where they say the more the data, the better is the AI. In fact, this is the paper. You guys can Google for it if you want and go through it. So essentially, it says that as the data gets bigger, as the compute size gets bigger, the performance of the AI keeps increasing. Performance of the AI keeps becoming better and better. So let's go ahead. When we talk of data, what is data? We basically have four broad types of data. You have text data, you have images, which are pictures, you have audio, which are sound signals, and you have video. So any type of data is now being able to be trained and to be able to be predicted or to be used by the AI. So these are what we called as multimodal AI systems. Initially, the AI systems which came could only recognize words. Then some of them could recognize pictures. Some of them could recognize both words and pictures. Some of them could, understand audio signals, video signals, and so on. Most of the latest models have what we call as multimodal capabilities, but Some of them are better in some aspects and all, which we can dig a little deeper when we need to. So Harvard has a very good acronym for it, which I love it. It's called WINS, which means words, images, numbers, and sound. So this is the kind of data which is being used in any AI model. So so data type does not matter. Let's understand this fundamental aspect. It can be any data, AI will work. So AI magic just works. How? Let's look at the how in a simplistic form without getting very technical. So you need powerful hardware, you need powerful chips. So Nvidia is a company which all of us are aware. It is the most valuable company on the planet today. It has got fundamentally two types of chips, H200 and H100, and these chips are very very sophisticated chips. And this is the company whose chips are being used almost by each and every AI vendor who's looking at training AI systems. So now let's look at software. So when you come to our website's AI page, there are three broad categories that we mention on AI. So there is AI, which is artificial intelligence. There is ML, which is machine learning, and then there is DL, which is deep learning. Now, deep learning is something which, due to the mobile and web data explosion over the last 10 to 15 years, due to the cheap cloud computing and storage, thanks to people like Amazon, Google, Microsoft, who allow you to store terabytes of data on their cloud systems very cheaply, there has been an explosion in the deep learning field. AI is not a new technology. AI has been a very, very old technology. I think it's almost 60 to 70 years old. But deep learning is something which really has picked up only in the last 10 to 15 years in a very, very big way. And ML, which is machine learning, is a subcategory of AI. And there are various other there are many techniques which are there in machine learning, which unfortunately, due to or fortunately, due to the simplicity and the scalability of deep learning, are now getting obsolete. So deep learning has now become very, very powerful, and it has become extremely broad and extremely deep in being able to solve different kinds of problems. So what's deep learning? The key concept you need to understand is something which is called as a neural network. Now it looks very complicated, but once you understand it, it's very, very simple. So let's dig a little deep into what a neural network is. We call them deep neural networks only because of the size. So I can have a neural network which is very, very small. I can have a neural network which runs into trillions of parameters, as we just saw in the case of AI. But let's see what this neural network actually is. So DARPA, which is I think the defense agency of the US, almost 3 decades back, had called neural networks as a technology which is more important than the atom bomb, and rightly so. So let's look at a neural network. These are also called as DNNs, deep neural networks, and these initially were patterned on the human brain. So let's see what the inspiration came from. So on the left hand side, we see a structure of a typical neuron. Now, I was very poor in biology, but essentially all our brain cells, we have trillions and trillions of these neurons, which are all connected to each other, and they keep receiving sensory inputs from all our senses and allowing the brain to work, and then allowing us to take action. Similarly, on the right hand side, you have a structure of an artificial neuron. Now this is the only technical diagram, I promise you, which is there in the presentation. So you just need to understand this. If you understood this, you understood how AI works. So on the left hand side, I have inputs x1, x2, x3. Now remember, in any computer, a computer only understands numbers. So when I spoke of the WINS model earlier, I spoke of words, images, numbers, and sound. All of these, when they are fed into an AI system, ultimately go only as numbers. So imagine you have three input cells, x1, x2, x3. Each of these has their own weights, which is called W1, W2, W3. So let's take an example of this. So let's say I have X1 could be day of the week. So I could have, let's say, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. If I'm trying to, let's say, predict the behavior of a retail customer, I want to know, who are on what days of the weeks do I have, traffic in terms of retail footage or retail footfalls. So each of these inputs has a weight W1, W2, W3. Now all these go into a cell where you see the sigma function, and on that sigma function there is a bias. Now a bias is an independent number. So let's dig deeper into this. So what's happening here is in this sigma, in the sigma that you see, there is a very simple mathematical computation which is taking place, which is x1 into w1 plus x2 into w2 plus x3 into w3. So this is a multiplication of each input cell by its respective weights, and then you have a bias. Now, a simple way in which I communicate this, this example to people is that assuming I have three subordinates who report to me, x1, x2, x3. I know that one subordinate's views are very important to me, and another subordinate's views are totally not important to me. So x1 is my most important team member. So whatever he says, I attach a very high value of the weight. So I would say, okay, if Sunil is a good friend and Sunil is a or somebody is giving me good inputs, I will attach a very high value weight to what that person is telling me. So this could be X1. Similarly, X3 could be someone whose opinion I don't value because the person has tried to mislead me or he's had integrity issues. So his weight will be, let's say, close to zero. So in the cell of a neural network, or in the cell that you see as sigma, you have this mathematical computation which is taking place, and you have a bias. A bias is essentially an independent number which gets added. So this is the only mathematical operation that we see when we train a neural network. So let me go ahead. After that, we have something called as an activation function. The activation function could be as simple as a simple, supposing it is drizzling very lightly, and I need to decide whether I want to take an umbrella or no. So I will not take the umbrella. But if it's raining very heavily, then my activation function in my brain says, look, you better take an umbrella. So that is what is an activation function. And again, it is mathematical. So what it does is whatever output it is coming from this equation, based on that number, it gets activated, positively or negatively or neutrally. And that gives the output that we show on the right hand side. Okay. So let's go ahead. So this is what we call as a deep neural network, where you have data on the left hand side and you have the AI outputs on the right hand side. So a data, when I say data, it could be any types of data. It could be a word, it could be numbers, it could be images, it could be sound. So this the red cells that you see are called as the input layer. And depending on the types of neural network, you could have 256, you could have 512, usually a mathematical number which will have. So in my input layer, I have shown you only two neurons, the red neurons, but I could have 100, I could have 200, I could have as many as I want. Now, the signals from each of these, the arrows that you see going from left to right are the weights which are going from the red cell to the gray cells on the right hand side. So the gray cells are what we call as a hidden layers. And on the right hand side, we have the final layer, which is called as an output layer. Okay. So let's go ahead. So this function which I showed you, the neural network calculation function at the neuron is happening at every cell of every of these gray cells. This calculation is happening. So it's happening in the first hidden layer, it's happening in the second hidden layer, and it's also happening in the third hidden layer. And so this is the way this is the way in which an input signal gets transmitted through the neural network on onto the output layer. So this is what we call as a left to right movement which is happening in the neural network. So again, showing this diagram because this is the only diagram which actually is the formula which gets scaled and which gets used in every neuron that you see in any neural network. So let's go ahead. So a DNN, a deep neural network, one of the parameters is the number of layers you have. So typically all these AI GPT-4, GPT-3 have maybe hundreds of layers. Then how many neurons are there in every layer? So this is again depending on the input. For example, if I am writing a if I am Chat GPT and I have to answer text, you know, the number of my sentence size, my paragraph size, my page size will have as many neurons as there are words which are there in my input context. Okay. So this is again a decision which is taken by the AI. And all the neurons between the layers are connected. Okay. There are specialized cases of neural networks. I'm not getting into those right now. So the connections are bidirectional. So essentially what is happening is that broadly, the signal moves from left to right. And from the right, it again moves backward, telling the signal or telling the backward neuron that look, what you've given me is not correct. You need to make an adjustment in your weight. Okay. So this is a process which is called as back propagation. I have not shown it over here because I didn't want to make it very technical. But I have a separate slide session on how neural networks work, which I can share if I can share the document if someone is interested. So the DNN size depends on the number of layers and the number of neurons per layer. So data we have the AI outputs, which moves from left to right. So we have text, we have images, we have audio, we have video. Okay. All this gets inputted as numbers. There are techniques which we use to convert these data from text to numbers. I won't get into that. I have a separate video on that. It's called entity embeddings. If anyone is interested, I can share a link, a YouTube link of the same. So parameters. What are parameters? DNN size I mentioned is expressed in terms of parameters. So these parameters are nothing but the weights and biases which are there in the system, which I showed you, which I mentioned earlier. So in this case, W1, W2, W3 are my weights. So I have three weights and I have one bias. So at every neuron, I will have the number of weights coming in from the input neurons. I'll have a bias. So these biases are what we call as the parameters. So a GPT-4 model has 1.76 trillion weights and biases which are there in its entire network. It's a huge network. Similarly, so again, I'm showing it just to give context as to the size of a GPT-4. GPT-3 has 175 billion parameters, weights, and biases. And this is why we call it as big data, because it's really huge. Now let's look at the AI training part. I mentioned briefly what AI training is. So there is something that we call as a training phase in which the signals move from left to right with all the input data in the input layer, weights and biases which get adjusted. So as the signal moves from left to right, it comes to the end of the network. And there, depending on how accurate the signal is, there is a phase called as back propagation. So just let me take an example. Suppose in the data, I have fed it, images of different animals, and I want to classify at the end. You show me the image of a dog and show me the image of a cat. Okay. Now the system will would have has these systems have been trained on the entire corpus of internet data, which has millions of cats and dogs images which have been there on the net. So the folks who trained these networks actually had to show these systems, show these show these networks actual images of cats and dogs and tell them, okay, this is a cat, this is a dog, this is a cat, this is a dog. This is what we call as labeling of data, which is what has been done. So that is what is a training phase. And then there is this is what we call as a forward pass. And then there is a backward pass in which the difference of the signals. So supposing I'm trying to classify an elephant as a cat, the system tells me no, this is not a cat. So it again goes back, it goes right up to the beginning of the network, and it again adjusts the weights and the balances, weights and the biases, so that ultimately after multiple rounds of training which can go on for days, months together, the system will actually know, yes, this is a cat, this is a dog, this is an elephant. Now this is the same technology which works for every neural network, whether we talk of words or whether we talk of numbers and so on. So let's go ahead. So the training phase is obviously, as we understand, the most important part of a neural network. The most crucial piece in this information is the data. If you have good data, you will have good network. If you have bad data, you will have a bad AI. So what is this training infrastructure that we are talking about? Let's look at that. So these are Elon Musk has a company called XAI, which has set up a supercluster. A cluster is a collection of machines. A supercluster is a large collection of machines. Okay, and there is a place in Memphis, I think Tennessee in the US, where he started this training, and he was late to the AI game. As you all know, he was the one who had initially invested in OpenAI. Then they threw him out because he thought that they were trying to move away from an objective of being a non-profit. And then almost about 2 years back, I think he started his own AI after he took over Twitter, because one of the advantages for him, for his AI, is that Twitter is the world's largest real-time news database. So he started this supercluster at a place called Memphis, which is on 850 acres of land. 850 plus acres of land is what I checked last. In fact, this is so huge, and because there is a shortage of electricity in the US, he is importing his own power plant from abroad to run this cluster. So the powerful hardware which I mentioned, H200, H100. Now, before Elon Musk entered the AI scene, most companies would have only 30,000 pieces of these GPUs. These are called as GPUs, graphical processing units, H200, H100. Because if you realize, the one of the salient parts of what I've spoken so far, at its most fundamental basis, that neural network equation which I showed you, those three inputs, x1, w1, x2, w2, going into a cell, a bias getting added, it's actually a very, very simple equation in mathematical terms. So GPU hardware is much more simpler in terms of its complexity as compared to normal computers, because basically it does only one kind of mathematical operation. I mean, it's one of the branches which it uses is calculus mathematics. So essentially, before Elon Musk came on the scene, most companies would have clusters which were 30,000 GPUs. Now each GPU costs about, I think, 50,000 rupees, $50,000 as on today. So he was the first guy. He said that I want to make this 100,000 GPUs. Okay. to the extent where even Nvidia, Nvidia's technical team told him that that is not possible. In fact, he gave them a challenge, and I think within 20 days they set up 100,000 GPU cluster, which was a shock in the industry. Nobody believed that he could pull it off. This was sometime during July, August last year, 2024, and to the extent that I mean, people call him an Einstein of today's age, but he actually looks at things from first principles. So he was able to solve problems which NVIDIA's own engineers could not solve. Because see, there are two problems in this kind of a facility, as you can recognize. One is the huge power consumption and the cooling requirements which are there because these generate a lot of heat. And secondly, more important, is the connectivity of the different GPU pieces to each other, GPU computers to each other. So he proved it to the industry that everybody was laughing at him. He told them, look, I will achieve 100,000 GPUs, which he did last year. Then he said, I will increase it to 2 lakhs, which again nobody believed him. He did that. And today, as on July 2025, he's got 3,40,000 NVIDIA GPUs, which are running in his data center at Memphis. Now this number, what he's put in, is something which is even beyond the capacity of large countries. Let's take an example. India has its own project on AI, which as on May 2025, India is planning 34,000 GPUs. So imagine one country like India, which is probably the third player in the world after China and the US, to show potential for AI only because of a large population and a large use cases, a large mobile data which is there. So he, one single company, XAI, has got 10 times the number of GPUs which India has. And there is more to come. He is planning to target increase this 1 lakh, 3 lakh 40,000 GPUs to 1 million GPUs. He wants to do it by the end of 2025 or probably middle of next year. So he obviously has set ambitions to be the most significant player in the industry, which as I will show a little lately as to what he has done recently. So this is a huge computing huge computing facility which is available. Just to share a personal example with you. Last year when I was in the US, my son is in a place called Des Moines, Iowa. Now Iowa is the only state in the US, I think, where they get 40% of their wind power. 40% of their power comes from wind farms. And he had taken us, and it's all countryside. Iowa is all countryside. So we were driving one day back, and suddenly I saw on the right hand side, I saw a fenced structure, and there was no, it was a huge structure, huge, looked like a huge warehouse. And we kept driving for at least a couple of, maybe 1.5 kilometer. And then the building ended. And then I realized it was the Facebook data center in Iowa. Similarly, ChatGPT, when it was first launched in 2022, it was running from the place where my son stays, which was West Des Moines. That time they were using the Microsoft data center, which was, OpenAI was using the Microsoft data center, which was there in Des Moines, Iowa. So, one interesting note, all of us are used to searching in Google, but the Google data centers many years ago were so power conscious and so intelligent that the power your query would consume in servicing your request would be less than the power that our computers consume. So all of Google's data centers, in fact, sorry, most of these data centers, whether it is Google, Microsoft, OpenAI, they use extensive AI, they use extensive sensors, to keep track of their power usage. Because one of the criticisms which the industry faces is that, you are using a lot of power, which is actually it's a valid objection. but most of them use power very, very efficiently. So this is the scale at which, in fact, Google has a separate, I think, consulting service which they advise companies how to use AI to cut energy usage. So so this is a training phase. In these training phases, what you have is large amounts of data which is getting fed into these computers, and this data could be, as I mentioned to you, 13 OpenAI GPT-4 used 13 trillion words, which is probably thousands and thousands of books, and then they are trained in such a way that they can start giving intelligent answers to the questions that we put them. So after this training phase is complete, which can go on from for probably 4 to 6 months, on each of these huge network of computers. So you have what is called as, after completion of training, you have what is called as a trained deep neural network, a trained DNN. So what is a trained DNN? How does it look like? How does it, feel like? So we have what is called as an AI model. An AI model is nothing but a collection of all the weights and biases which have been finalized by the network after feeding it, trillions and trillions of words or information, so that, when I ask it a question, it gives me an answer because it has already seen that pattern somewhere else in its training set. So this is a zip file. All of us have worked with zip files. WinZip is a utility which you use. And if you look at a zip file, you will just see a series of numbers. It will be some series of long numbers across multiple rows and columns. But these are very large zip file of numbers. These are very large matrices. And these large zip file of numbers ultimately get copied. They get copied on the cloud infrastructure. Some of them now have been, there is an area of research called as the small AI models. So some of them are small enough to be copied onto your laptop as well as your phone. So this is essentially the output of the entire training. It is just a zip file of numbers, which, as they say, it encapsulates the entire knowledge which is there of humanity, or whatever it has been trained on. This is what causes the AII DNN magic, I call it. So let's look at ChatGPT and Meta. These are the two most frequently used, AI models. There is a specific term we use for them. Meta, as you know, belongs to Facebook, and it's the one. It's the AI that we see on our in our WhatsApp chat phones. So ChatGPT and Meta AI also use what is called as a neural network, which I just mentioned. This is the same diagram which I showed you earlier. Earlier, I was showing it to you from left to right. Now I'm showing it to you from bottom to up. So data goes in down, and then you have some AI outputs. So both ChatGPT or any other AI software uses a specific kind of a DNN which has got two parallel networks. And the only difference is the first network that you see on the left hand side passes data to the second network. Of course, I'm simplifying it. It's not just 3 layers. There are many more layers. And 2017, Google came out with this seminal paper called "Attention is All You Need." You know, and the happy thing, which made me very happy, I recognized two Indian names, Ashish Vaswani and Nikki Parmar, on that particular paper. And these gentlemen came out with what is called as a transformer architecture. So a transformer architecture that you see in the middle is nothing but nothing but a deep neural network, but it has got some complications in terms of how it trains, how data has to be fed, and so on. But it's nothing but a deep neural network, a very large deep neural network. So every AI today that you see, that we use in popular parlance, is what uses what we call as a transformer architecture. Just for information, just today I was seeing the news that Google has a company called DeepMind, which is based in London. And after OpenAI came in, Google and DeepMind they merged their AI divisions together, and they have come out with an architecture which is a new architecture, which is apparently even better than the transformer. It's called MOR. I think it means some recursions. MOR stands for recursions. MOR architecture, which is even better apparently than the transformer architecture. But this transformer architecture is the architecture which is being used today to power what we call as large language models, LLMs. So when I say chat GPT, when I say meta, these are all large language models. Why are they called as large? We've already seen big data. Why are they called as language? Because they have been primarily trained on text which was found on the internet. You know, uh, so go back to what I mentioned about the Howard Wins model: words, images, numbers, sound. So trained on text, words, images, numbers. Actually, even sound signals get transformed into numeric representation. So even that can technically come as numbers. That's why I've shown it. I have not shown sound on the left hand side. So the AI DNN magic happens primarily due to a simple technique, and all of us actually are familiar with it. All of us, when we are typing something in WhatsApp, if you see below, here I have typed "we are," and the chat interface has shown me having, which it's prompting me, is that your next word? So basically, and the basic thing an LLM does, a chat GPT does, or a meta LLM does, is nothing but generate the next word. So essentially, they are just the next word predictor and nothing else. There's nothing complicated about it. How do they predict the next word? They essentially have seen all the data. So supposing you are saying today is Christmas and they will prompt you, I'm going to bake a cake. Or if you say today is Diwali and I'm going to they will answer light some fireworks, because they've seen that data hundreds and thousands or probably millions of times on the internet. Okay. So this diagram will show what I'm saying. So look at the first sentence. When I say I am, the word am in red is what gets predicted by the model to me as a next word. So when I select am, then it shows me going. When I select I am going, it shows me to. When I select I am going to, it shows me the. And if I when I say I am going to the, it shows me park. Now all these words in red are only shown based on mathematical probabilities and nothing else. There is no magic which is happening. It's all assuming that there are 50,000 words which are there in the English language, and assuming the entire text on the internet is a huge combination of different sentence combination, books, paragraphs, tons of documentation which has been put. So these networks have derived after the training a mathematical probability of what you are probably looking at. That is the reason they are also called as stochastic parrots. Most LLMs are also use the word stochastic parrots, because they really don't understand what they are saying. They are just throwing out what they have been trained on. So understanding this is most important, because this it will help us navigate the challenges that we have with handling Gen AI or generative AI. So these LLMs are called as generative AI because they are generating words. So let's go ahead. So this is I picked up this slide from Data Forest, and shown on the left hand side is the starting technology, large language models, and text generation, as I mentioned, as I showed you, is just one of the tasks on which these models have been trained. Similarly, there are multiple tasks on which they have been trained. They could be trained on language translation. They could be trained on knowledge answering, classification, and so on. Outer spheres show you the different companies. Then you have the different players which are there. So the point I'm trying to make is two things you need to be aware of. First is the fundamental technology is that neural network, simple calculation which I showed you, W1 x1, W2 x2. That is one fundamental part. And the second fundamental part is it is just a next word predictor. So when I say text generation, it's only predicting the next word. But because it has seen 650 kilometers of books, it has been trained on a laptop size compute for 7 million years. And because the data is the size of 30,000 football fields, it's been able to give you answers in a way that you understand it as intelligent. But it has got no more intelligence than, let's say, a cat or a dog, probably even lesser. So let's go ahead. So we saw, let's take some examples. So there are multiple types of inputs, multiple types of outputs. So you could have text input to text input to image output to text output, and fundamentally at the bottom, it's any input to any output. So let's look at some practical examples of these, which I have worked or I have played around with. So my dad was hospitalized in an ICU in Bombay's three hospitals for the last 2 years. And an ICU hospitalization is a nightmare. You have someone comes and gives you a X-ray. You don't know what the X-ray says. The report of the X-ray will come after 2 days. So what I did was I used to take the X-rays, I used to feed them into an AI software, send it to my son in the US who's a doctor, and let him revert back to me as to what the X-ray was, because my dad had a lung issue. So, but this is something which is very, very useful. Medical, in fact, for India, I think AI, the benefits that we are going to get from, the healthcare costs. I was discussing with some friends of mine the huge costs of medical insurance which are there for all of us senior citizens, so most of us who are senior citizens. But with AI, there is tons of companies who are at work to incorporate AI as much as possible in their in their planning and in there, so that it can help with diagnosis. And it's a huge problem all over the world. You used it for marketing planning, job role specifications. Okay, this is a software automation, web design, code review. My company has 40 years experience in software. And what we used to do was every software project, we used to follow our own proprietary methodology, because many years back I had exhibited at CeBIT, Hanover, Germany, and it was a consortium of software companies. My company along with 10 to other companies. I had a German old guy. He walked up to me and he looked at me and he said, "Look, you think that you as a consortium can work? I have one Visual Basic programmer sitting in my one cubicle. He does not talk to the COBOL programmer sitting in the next cubicle. How the hell do you think a consortium will work?" So since 1994, it's almost 40 years, I have been working on a project to create a unique methodology for all our projects, we have thousands and thousands of software artifacts, which I plan to, add, feed to an AI so that, we can further automate software. Software automation is one of my passions. So I just thought I'll mention that. I was given the role of evaluating a private sector technology university who's investing hundreds of crores in setting up a unique private sector university in India, modeled on the line of IITs. I spent time with them looking at their course offerings and gave them suggestions on how to help them plan their course design, considering the fact that AI is going to pose challenges to software professionals. education courseware design, business SWOT analysis, global competitive strategy, creating a proposal ROI, simplification of legal documents. The most important. I've used it multiple cases. Learning. This is one trick that you can use. Any concept you don't understand, just tell the AI. Any AI, pick up ChatGPT, pick up Meta. Explain to me any difficult concept you put in, as you would do to a 5-year-old child. So you just tell your Meta AI, explain to me how a network works, as you would do to a 5-year-old child. It gives you beautiful answers. It's a great learning tool. Somebody reached out to me last year saying that he was moving from New York to Dubai. Could I help him with a detailed relocation analysis? He and his wife were offered a job in Dubai. Both of them were working, but if they had moved to Dubai, his wife would not work. There were differences in tax structure. There were differences, so many things. And believe me, in minutes, uh, these AI tools give you a brilliant, set of documents. In fact, they were able to generate me set of Excel files, which I could, use to plug in my own data and ask it further questions. In this budget, honorable finance minister mentioned that there is no tax on 12 lakhs. A lot of people were confused. This was one time I used it. A friend of mine was getting a flat from his mom, and he didn't know what were the duties and taxes payable. So AI helped me clarify that. IPO, I use it multiple times. Any IPO I apply to, if it's an important IPO, I upload the draft red herring prospectus, which is called the DHRP. They every company who goes for an IPO has to upload it on SEBI website. It's a huge document which runs into probably 90 to 100 or probably 400 500 pages. Now I don't have time to go through the whole document. So I have a set of questions which I ask the AI. Please go through this and tell me whether I should invest in this IPO or not. A friend whose child is a travel influencer send me samples of YouTube video and suggest content and style enhancements. These are great. These LLMs are great. Great consultants. Let me put it that way. A customer of ours was having a problem. They are an educational institution, and their existing web portal is being maintained by a software company, and they were not being able to, get certain things done. Now, I have never created a Chrome code extension in my life before, but in about 3 days, I was able to create one and give them a demo of how it was, working properly. They were very grateful for it because, the American company would not respond and they would charge them probably, hundreds of dollars just to look at the problem. So it's AI is productive. AI is moving ahead. School reunion fun ideas. We had a reunion, so I suggested some fun ideas, themes. What could be done. This is very close to my heart because I think this is one area where India will definitely benefit. My dad, who fortunately, he's still with me, but we have an ICU at home. We have two nurses attending to him, and I basically spend a lot of time with him. He got sick in starting of this year, and I uploaded his complete, report to the AI. Okay, and this was my question. This is my dad's 89-year-old dad's latest CBC and other reports. He's feeling slightly dull and drowsy since yesterday with mild intermittent fever. He also vomited. Can you analyze the test report and suggest anything significant? So look at the thought process. So this AI uses a step-by-step approach. So for it gives me it when it was showing me the steps it was following. So it first looked at the RBC parameters. So the RBC parameters are on top. It looked at it, and it gave me a whole report, and it also gave me a conclusion at the end of it. Which obviously I am not a doctor, so I sent it to my family doctor and my son, and I told them, please go through it and let me know if there are any red flags or any things that you don't agree with. Because it's very important to verify every output that you get from an AI. Okay. Just some quick examples. So I am on a social activist group where somebody said, somebody asked a question, what is the work going on behind Breach Candy Hospital? I just typed the same question into an AI and it gave me three options. It said Mumbai Coastal Road Project, Breach Candy Hospital expansion, or there is a urban forest which is coming up. Then I said no. Somebody said no. There is some confusion. So he said just check what happening. There is some heavy work happening exactly behind the hospital. And this is the same prompt I said. What is the heavy work going exactly behind the hospital? So I have emphasized heavy and exactly behind over here. So it said there are two possibilities. There is a coastal road control center coming up, or there is a parking facility near Amarsan's exit of the coastal road. I again gave these two possibilities to the group and I suggested one of the activists who stays nearby to go and find out. That person went and he actually said, I have confirmed some land was given to Breach Candy Hospital, but they have filed a writ petition saying that it is their land. So they are converting it into a car park. So right now a boundary wall is being made. Now, in addition to the answers which it gave me, it also gave me links. It showed me links of this Hindustan Times article and also a map as to where it had relied the information on. So not only are they answering or seeming to answer intelligent questions, they are also giving you sources that can be verified, which is obviously a great time saving task. Some simple examples: birthday cards, wedding cards, you know, these are all examples of text to image output. Contemporary style cards, animated images, save the date cards. This is again an example which is close to my heart. I'm part of a doctors group which has been very active after COVID. So there was someone who posted a group for her servant's daughter, saying that she had a very peculiar kind of a problem, skin problem, and she wanted if anybody could help. And she said, look, she's not able to afford. So I would suggest someone, probably someone from Cooper Hospital, because I stay near Cooper Hospital, someone who can help. So what I did was I waited till about, because I normally don't like to intervene on a group where there are doctors, where you, because they try to think that you are being more smart. So I kept quiet, but since nobody responded for almost 12 hours, at night I asked the I uploaded a photograph of that what the lady had put up. She said this is a growth on her neck. It's itchy and blood is coming out. She's 10 years old. Please, can anyone suggest? Now, this is what the AI told me. It's possibly a nevus or a type of birthmark. Okay. And predictably so, after I had suggested this and after I put up on the group, look, this is AI. Please get it verified from a skin doctor. A skin doctor replied saying, yes, it's what is called as an epidermal nevus, a kind of birthmark. So the point I'm trying to say here is, if any one of us had the experience of going to a doctor, typically what happens, most of us, okay, my son, my sister, my nieces are all doctors, nothing to, but they have so much of workload. You sit outside the cabin for half an hour, 45 minutes. The assistant will probably take your case history for 5-10 minutes, then the doctor will see you for 2-3 minutes. So they really do not have, the wherewithal to be able to look at a patient, understand the symptoms, and so this is going to be a great help in my judgment, helping India, helping us get better healthcare, for our large populations who can't afford. Another example, I took it, I mentioned it specifically because this is from a company called TII, Technology Innovation Institute, is a company based in Abu Dhabi, and they came out with an AI called Falcon. And I asked it to generate a poem on India-Pakistan peace by a famous Pakistani poet called Faiz Ahmad Faiz. It gave me it's a nice poem which it generated. So I was very happy with the kind of output it gave me. This was another example. You can generate messages in people who've expired. For one presentation, we were able to do it in Einstein's voice, Gandhi's voice. So essentially, the AI has learned Einstein voice samples which are out there on the web, learned Gandhi's voice samples which are out there on the web, and then it's able to convert any text you put into the voice samples in the style of Einstein and Gandhi. SPJMR is my MBA school. So I used a photograph of that, which is the first content. I put it in the style of MF Hussain, whose painting I admire, and it was able to quickly generate me a painting in the same photograph. So it's content plus style equal to stylized content. I believe now this is there. I think it's there in every many of the Instagram filters and all. It's all there. So this is another interesting project I worked on. Uh, the same AI software works across different domains, healthcare and banking. If I go to the ICU chief of Ambani Hospital and I tell him I'll give you an AI which has worked for State Bank of India, he'll throw me out. He'll say, "What the hell are you talking? What is my bank? What is my hospital to do with State Bank of India?" Same thing if I go to the CEO of a bank and I tell him the other example that I've created a software for Ambani Hospital. Why don't you use it for your bank? Across different countries, Pakistan and Portugal. So there was a project I worked on where for a Pakistani hospital, you had to predict cardiac failure amongst Lahore patient population. And the data sets were ready. This is the most important lesson that you need to learn, that if an AI has to work, your data has to be ready. If your data is not ready, your AI will not work. The same AI software was used for both of these use cases, which are very, very different. On the right hand side, there is a Portugal bank who had given data for predicting their success of their loan repayments. So the same AI software, this was working on Microsoft Azure. Microsoft Azure is Microsoft's AI platform, which is there on the cloud. And in this case, the same AI was there for both, because this algorithm that we used was very advanced in the sense it was able to run through multiple combinations of AI models which were there. So it was not just one AI, but it was a series of AIs. So it was able to use those for making predictions. And these predictions that are made are pretty good. Huh? They are not some predictions which are wild. So this is an example of a number input to a number output, because both these are numbers. Cardiac failure probability is a number. Loan repayment probability is a number. So this was at the cost of a few US dollars, just to share that in perspective. So what is happening is, not only you are getting capabilities which are far, far beyond human abilities, you are getting them at a cost which is far, far lesser. So this has got huge implications, as all of us realize, for all of us here. So the power of AI. AI is there in everything. Whether you are there on Amazon Prime, Facebook, or Netflix, the kind of movies recommendation it shows you. Zomato, Flipkart, they have got multiple AI projects which are running in their companies, because see, let's remember one thing. These companies have huge amounts of data. In India, because our data is so cheap, because we have large you know number of phones which are there, and India is a country where a poor person, or most of us, would happily give away our data privacy for convenience. So as Nandan Nilekani rightly says, India can be the AI use case capital of the world, so with a huge amounts of data which is there. So let's look at the impact of AI, some perspectives. There is a golden key which I want to share with you right now. So Dr. Subbarao Kambampati is one of the most acknowledged but not very well known professors in computer science in Arizona State University. He, by the way, is a guy who has been constantly challenging OpenAI in all their claims. Okay. Last year, when I was in the US for almost 3 months, I attended multiple meetings, both online and offline with people who are focused on AI and strategies and all. And very few people in the US were aware of this guy. But he is one of the most astute guys in the field, and he has a series of talks. You can Google him. There are some of his talks which are there, and he consistently maintains even till today that AI is the the claims of AI which are there in terms of reasoning, that AIs can reason, are not claims which can be validated. So he has come out with this interesting visual, which is a very important visual. Just pay some thought to it. It says all these impressive reasoning abilities of LLMs, all that the shiny bulbs you see on top, is all based on a very weak foundation, which is that the prompter should know the answer. So what is he saying is, if I as a human being, if I am asking a question to AI about my field of knowledge, which is software, and if AI gives me an answer, I, because of virtue of my software background, will be immediately able to say whether what the AI is telling me is right or wrong. So this has got very important implication, because a lot of people, keep asking me questions. Should I stop coding? What career should I choose for my child? What jobs will be available? My answer to them always has been, just ask those kids to follow their passion. If they are passionate in any field of their choice, they will be able to learn, or they will be able to learn and relearn continuously. So what does it mean? It means that whenever an AI gives me any output, it makes sense only if we know the correct answer. Which means, when I asked the AI on what is this defect on that child's neck, it told me it is possibly a nevus or a type of birthmark. Now, this could not have been answered by a cardiologist. This could not have been answered by a physician. It could have only been answered by a dermatologist. So, the golden key in AI is that your domain knowledge is still very, very critical. So, whatever knowledge that you have, as long as you've been learning and relearning, and you've been able to, apply to your work on a constant and consistent basis, that knowledge is still very, very critical. It cannot be thrown away. In fact, 2 nights back, I attended a meeting which was hosted by one of the companies in New York, and they were talking about how companies initially, threw away their more experienced, employees, and then they brought them back because they thought, these people will not be able to, because they realized that, AI was giving answers, but those answers needed domain knowledge to verify the answers which were being given. So, some impact of AI. Just continuing that thread. Andrew Ng is one of the most respected scientists in the field of AI. In 2016, he had made a prediction, what is called the 1 second mental task. What he said: if a typical person can do a mental task with less than 1 second of thought, we can probably automate it using AI either now or in the near future. Now just think about the implication of this. In our waking day of almost 15, 16 hours, how many thoughts pass through our mind? How many 1 second mental tasks pass through our mind? So if we follow logically what he's saying, we are talking of a huge amount of change which is happening as we see, and which will happen in the future. So impact of AI, man versus machine, has been a very old battle. So there was this movie Naya Daur, which sometimes when my dad watches, while I'm doing my work, I watch with him, where Dilip Kumar, he's challenged in his village. He fights. He fights a new bus service. I think Jeevan has started a bus service in the village, and Dilip Kumar in the end is able to defeat him. Uh, so his horse cart runs faster than the bus. Real life, unfortunately, is not so filmy. In the early 1900s, you had this phenomenon of horses were there and cars were there. In 1900, the number of cars and number of horses, and then it's surprising, but there were in those days when cars were first introduced, many cities had actually planned jobs for people called as spotters or flagmen who would walk in front of the cars, to warn the horse-driven horse-drawn carriage drivers that there was a car approaching. So just be careful. So this was actually the job planning which was done in those days. All of us are familiar with Moore's law. Moore's law says that on every real estate which is there in a computer, the number of chips double every 2 years and the cost is halved. So there's a variation of Moore's law by Sam Altman, who is the founder of OpenAI. He calls it the Moore's law for everything, where he says two important things: marginal cost of intelligence first, and marginal cost of energy are going to trend rapidly towards zero. Now, this has got huge implications. Incidentally, besides OpenAI, he also has Sam Altman has multiple investments, I think, in nuclear fusion companies. But what he's saying is that the cost of intelligence is going towards zero. And OpenAI has a service called as Deep Research. Essentially, what Deep Research does is that you can give it a task and it will research all over the internet, find all the sources, and it will come back to you with a neatly compiled research report. So, as per Sam Altman, this can do a single digit percentage of all economically valuable tasks in the world, which I think if you look at the global GDP, it's probably running into trillions of dollars in terms of tasks which are economically valuable. So even a single digit percentage of that is a huge number. Sam Altman, in his WhatsApp group of friends, has a bet as to how soon the world will see a one person, 1 billion US dollars revenue organization. Now, somewhere they have also mentioned one person, 1 billion US dollars unicorn, which is a company which is valued at one person company valued at $1 billion. And this is the mental model. So you have a traditional boss who whips his employees to work. You have a leader who carries his employees along. Then you have an introvert who pulls his own cart. And then you have an introvert with AI. So the point is this doable? All of us work with WhatsApp, right? WhatsApp was purchased by Facebook for over $19 billion. And I think the number of employees which WhatsApp had when they were acquired was, I think, less than 50. So it's not something which is not thinkable. This is last year's news, but the trend has continued. All those of us who have IT stocks are seeing this happening day in and day out. Shankar Sharma, who is a very famous stock market analyst, he sits out of Dubai, and he said he had given a task to his team in India, back-end team in India, to do research on US company stocks that he could buy. And he's saying after 7 days, I asked them what happened. They said, no, sir, the report is not ready. He's saying I fed in the question to Chat GPT. I got an answer within 30 minutes. And I sacked all my employees in India who were not able to give me information in 7 days what an AI was giving me in 30 minutes. It's an extreme example, but it is it is what is probably going to happen. There are multiple examples like these. Let's look at some recent developments in AI. So this was December 2024. The White House was just being prepped for a new Christmas under a new president. And you had this Chinese company which on 26th December 2024 introduced a model called DeepSeek V3. Now, this was a fully open source model. When I say open source means the entire source code of the software, all the weights, all the parameters were fully declared to the public. Anybody could use it. Now, and the timing of the release was very, to me, it was very strategic because everybody knows nobody works in the Western world. In the week after Christmas, till 1st January, everything is shut. So they came out with this model, and this was a time when the US was looking forward to new leadership, AI leadership under President Trump. He had appointed two top-notch uh, technocrats to head his AI efforts. So, but this came as a shock to many people, and people who were thinking of China being 2 years or 3 years behind US were absolutely shocked because this model, if you see the kind of benchmarks which they showed over here. So a benchmarks, every time a new AI model is released, there are these series of tests. For example, here you see English tests, you see coding tests, you see mathematical tests and Chinese tests. So the first column is DeepSeek V3, their performance, and other columns are all the traditional models which are there. So this model was able to demonstrate cutting cutting edge benchmarks, beating all the other models, and this was open source. So this was like as if someone had decided that I have to give away this crown jewel for the world to work with. And this was not the end. In fact, this was an article which came in the Economic Times in December. So they claimed that it was trained on a joke of a budget. I think the claims were it was trained for a few $1 million, but there are some controversies on that. This was coming to the new year started. Okay, so on the second day of his inauguration, or second day of his presidency, President Donald Trump highlighted a partnership which would mean three leading companies in the US: OpenAI, Oracle, and SoftBank, which is a Japanese company. They would invest up to $500 billion building very, very large data centers, similar to the data center which I showed you earlier, which Elon Musk has built. So this was the announcement, and it was made on the second day of his office. Very strategically, 3 days later, DeepSeek, the same Chinese company, released another model called as R1. Now, R1 basically led to a complete $1 trillion wipeout from US stocks because R1 had many more capabilities as compared to the existing models which it was competing against, and it again came with very, very easy terms, very low cost, and so on. So, and it was, if people who are there from the computer hardware industry will know that many years back we used to have mainframe computers. In fact, there are still many companies in the world who use them, but mainframe computers got replaced by mini computers. Mini computers got replaced by personal servers, desktops. Desktops got replaced by laptops. Laptops got replaced by phones. The phones that we have today in our hands are much more powerful than the original mainframe computers which were there. So what DeepSeek R1 did was it showed that this entire investment which was being made in a huge $500 data centers was essentially like it was like a white elephant down the line. It would become a white elephant down the line because their technology was far, far better. In fact, Eric Schmidt, he is the ex-CEO of Google, who's written a book with the late Dr. Henry Kissinger on, I think, AI. He had expressed, I mean, he wrote a op-ed in the Washington Post, says that the balance of power between the two nations has shifted. In fact, he has said that he was shocked when V3 came out in December 2024. Now, is all this just an accident? I don't think so. I think I am equating deep sea actions to Pearl Harbor. All of us remember Pearl Harbor in 1941, where America was not part of the war and the Japanese just came in one night and they just decided to hit. So, if you see this, if you see the Nvidia, share price over here. I think now it has recovered. But look at the drop. Because what happened was, when you have a competitor who comes in with something which is far better, which is using far less costs and extremely flexible terms, with an idea just to kill the opponent. So I equated as an equivalent to Pearl Harbor attack, and this has continued. Yesterday, I asked one of the AIs, please tell me what are the new models which have been released by China after December 2024, and it gave me this list of models. If you see number three is a model which just came last 7 days back. It's called Kimi K2. Now, Kimi K2 is a model which is only focused on coding, on programming. Okay. And if you see the last one, there is a model called ByteDance Dobu 1.5 Pro. Now it is beating OpenAI's Chat GPT in certain benchmarks. So the idea is very clear. The PLA or someone there in the Chinese leadership has told the Chinese companies to go and kill the American AI companies, for whatever it takes. And remember, all this is in spite of all the restrictions which are there on China in terms of the chips or in terms of the technologies that they can import. In fact, just 2 3 days back, I think the chief of Nvidia said that they are now allowed to sell, I think, H20 chips to China. But the point is that, for instance, if you see the DeepSeek architecture, they have done things which are far more intelligent. So it's not just copying of American models. I had a friend. I have a friend who sold his autonomous car technology to one of the last large US majors, and he would always laugh at me when I would talk of China. He said nothing. They're just copycats. Last 3 4 years, he doesn't open his mouth on that subject because they have demonstrated that even though America is a leader in innovation as far as new technologies is concerned, China is a leader as far as implementation of AI. There are multiple examples of areas where they are far ahead of anybody else in the world. In fact, in India, there are these Chinese companies who used to give these loans on payday. So what they would only ask is, they would ask you to download the app, and within 5 seconds of downloading the app, they would pick up all the data from your phone and give you a decision as to whether they would give you a loan or not. You know, for instance, they would look at your how frequently do you recharge your battery. What is the kind of content that you have on your phone? Based on all that, they had created an AI model which was able to predict whether this person will repay his loan or not. TikTok is another great example, which is owned by this company ByteDance, which I have mentioned over here last, number five. TikTok is the most sophisticated weapon which China has against America. The kind of there are computer scientists who have worked with TikTok, and they say the kind of obsession which it forces you to get used to it habituates you to using it is something where they are literally playing with the entire young American generation. So this Chinese onslaught is going to continue. This is as of yesterday, which I was telling you. Kimi K2 is a model. In fact, one of the somebody is calling it the DeepSeek movement. This is a model that should worry Silicon Valley. It has got, by the way, it has got 1 trillion parameters. Okay, so this just came about 4 5 days, 11th July, I think it came out. US companies are not sitting still. So Mark Zuckerberg, his Meta AI, it has not been very successful. So they are offering $100 million sign-on bonuses to pick up people from Apple, OpenAI. So all of us who are in the technology industry, we always used to think of Apple as a leader. Apple makes the best consumer hardware phones, but Apple today is way behind almost everybody else in the field of AI. And second thing which Facebook or Meta has done is They have picked up there is a company called Scale AI which only specializes in training of models. So they have invested $14 billion and they are on the path to create what is called as super intelligence, ASI, artificial super intelligence. Just yesterday, ChatGPT came out with a new a new service called as ChatGPT Agent. So what ChatGPT Agent does is they had three services. They had a service called as operator, a service called as a computer, and a service called as deep research. So they have combined that into one. So essentially, what you can do is you can uh, you can ask it to do research for you, and it will be an autonomous agent which will go searching websites. It will go doing whatever you ask it to do, and come back to you with a report. In fact, somebody asked it yesterday to find out a new innovation idea which you can do in the AI of AI education. So this agent actually went and gave a, power, it created a presentation, it created a pitch deck which could be used to pitch to venture cap. So this just came out yesterday. I have not checked it out. Last, what I want to talk about, not last, but in terms of the models, is Grok 4. Elon Musk, as I told you, is planning a 1 million GPU Memphis supercluster. 15 days back or 7 days back, they released the new Grok 4 model, which beats both OpenAI and Google in RL. RL is a subfield called as reinforcement learning. So when I spoke of training, when I spoke of training, so there is after DeepSeek, DeepSeek showed that there could be other kinds of training also. So there's something called as model training, which is what I spoke earlier. There's something called as test time training. There is something called as inference training. So all these, the test time training and the inference training uses something called as reinforcement learning, which is a different kind of a technology. So Musk has created the new AI model Grok 4. It it He claims that it is a PhD level in everything. Now Musk usually makes very tall claims, but I will not take him lightly. He says that any PhD, you could be a PhD in economics, you could be a PhD in biology, you could be a PhD in medicine. This Grok 4 is PhD level in everything. And these are the benchmark leaderships. So what you see are a series of 5 tests which are there: GPQA, AIM 25. I think AIM 25 is a mathematical test. HMMT is humanities last test. So here the figures on the right hand side are all the figures which are pertaining to Grok 4. So this they have demonstrated benchmark leadership in almost all the major tests which are out there. And there is another test which is called as ArcAGI. ArcAGI is a test which tests human intelligence, where the problems, if you Google ArcAGI, you can go on the website. They will show you a series of problems which human beings can solve very easily, but machines find it very difficult to solve. So ArcAGI has apparently beaten almost all the other existing benchmarks, and see the comparison. It's somewhere sitting between, I think, 25 or 30, and look at the others: Claude below, Claude Sonnet, Gemini is Google's model, Grok 3 Mini, GPT 4.5, and so on. So the point is that whatever investments they are making in terms of the compute, the 3.4 lakh GPUs which are running today, as I talk, as we are having this presentation, you could be having that model running and learning all the time. Next few years, we will see there is a US China AI arms race which is going on. So what do we do as human ordinary folks? It's very clear AI improves productivity. However well you define productivity, there is a programming task which I do at the beginning of April every year. I started using ChatGPT 3 years ago when it came out, and believe me, it has helped me a lot. Essentially I have to go through resumes of almost 140 top science, computer science graduates in India, most of them from the IITs who are applying for master's scholarships in the US. And believe me, going through those application forms, each application form is about 24 pages. It includes details of the research that they have done and trying to find out who amongst these 125 people out, find out the 10 or 15 people who should be shortlisted for scholarships in the US for computer science is a huge. I mean, it's an immensely humbling task. I can honestly tell you, I don't understand 60 to 70% of the work that they have done because it's so technical. These are guys with IIT Bombay, 9.9, 9.8 GPA, all toppers, very hard workers and very focused. Got admissions, in leading universities, Stanford, Carnegie Mellon. They've got GRE scores of 334, 335, 336, and so on. So I have been using AI, multiple AI tools successfully for the last 4 years just to cut down, just to help me in my work. So generative AI will boost every each one of us productivity, all of us here. So we have to save time and we have to save money. Two simple lessons. So first lesson, protect your precious data. Your data is the most important asset that you have. The first thing when I go into any company and I tell them, they say, what should we do? I said, first thing is protect your data. Who are the folks in your company who have access to the data? Are you sure your data is not leaked? I had the unfortunate incident of a sales guy working with us. He was working with us for almost 5 years. And the last day, we have two offices in Andheri, and I just happened to walk into the other office. My brother was not there, and who used to sit in that office, and I found this guy copying our entire customer master data onto his own, you know. Now I caught him, but I don't know what else he could have copied. So the point is your data is very, very precious. It is the oxygen, as I mentioned to you, to your AI efforts. So every piece of data that you have to protect it. If not using AI, start doing so now. There are multiple free AI services tools available, and believe me, these are very, very good. It is still day zero in the AI disruption. People who understand how AI works, there is a very few people, few folks who actually understand what AI works. When I went to the US last year, as I told you, there was so much of panic amongst the people I interacted with. There were people who were star performers in their companies and who were sacked overnight because somebody, their boss felt that they were not doing a good job and they could be replaced by AI. So it is still the starting point. We have not even seen, because the pace at which this industry is growing, it really is at a very, very, I call it as there are two disruptions in the world. One is DT, Donald Trump, and the other is, daily, daily, daily disruption which is happening because of AI. AI will not beat you. Somebody using AI will beat you. Sounds logical, but yes, it's like multiple times in my consulting, I ask customers that, do you want me to give you an AI solution which will cost you, much less, or should I spend time on it? And it's at times they say no, I think an AI will do. At times they say no, I think we need your insights. Go through it. Most important, most important. In the last 1 month, for one of our customers, I must have generated almost 450 pages of AI outputs, 450 pages of of a domain on which I have no knowledge. So one of my things which I'm doing right now is I'm just going through it, verifying it, trusting it. Because as we have seen, as I showed you in the way the AI works, it is just it doesn't understand what it is saying. It is a stochastic parrot. It is dumping to you what it has learned. So it has no knowledge, it has no intelligence in terms of what it is telling you. So verification is your responsibility, and this is something that I do it all the time. Microsoft says every individual, every process, every organization, every industry will get impacted. There's no escaping it. Two last lessons: learn continuously. I had the fortune of being associated with Wipro's chairman, Mr. Azim Premji, when he used to run the company. I'm proud to say he's visited our office twice, and I have written an article on him on Medium. And he, even in those days when he was actively running the company, he would spend 2 hours every day learning. Okay, because can you imagine a person sitting like him? He's handling teams of intelligent people, and Wipro was the only company which did not give stock options to their employees, unlike Infosys. Infosys used to dole out stock options to their employees. Wipro would never do it for whatever reasons. And there are employees who would walk up to him and say, "Look, I'm handling a $50 million project. Give me stock right now, or I will quit." So the point I'm trying to say is learning is absolutely important. So we have to learn to learn. And the second point I want to say is stay humble. Andrej Karpati is a guy. He used to be the director of OpenAI, and he retired about 3 years ago. And he started developing a series of videos on making people understand AI. And Elon Musk calls him the top one of the top five computer vision guys in the world. When I say computer vision is a field of intelligence in AI, which only looks at processing images and videos. Now, Andrej Karpati, while he was working with Tesla, see Tesla car, the AI which is used in Tesla car has got 8 cameras in the car. They do not use what is called as a lidar. A lidar is a laser detected device which is used by Waymo. Waymo is Google's company. So what lidar does is it sends signals. It keeps sends signal to the surrounding, and if it hits any object, it tells the car there is an object. Whereas Elon Musk, because he works from first principles, he believes that he will solve computer vision problem in his Tesla with only cameras. So every Tesla car has got 8 cameras which continuously feed input of the surrounding world to the car. So Andrej Karpa, the reason I have mentioned it in this slide is that I have been following him since last 10, 12 years. I read one of his old articles many years back where he had explained, that neural network diagram which I showed you. He's written a technical article. He wrote a technical article on that many years back, and I had where he had explained how it works. And when he released his video, about 2 years back, I had a feeling he's made a mistake in what he was saying. He was talking about the way that back propagation, which I mentioned to you. There is a training phase and the back propagation phase. So I was having my doubts, and I read the article again, and again I watched his video, and I realized he had made a mistake. So I said, "Okay, let me at least point out to him, and let me tell you my experience with people in India who are very famous and who are very knowledgeable. Very, 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 very few of them will actually bother to acknowledge that they have made a mistake." It was late at night. I sent him a message on his YouTube video, and I shocked in the morning when I said, I think Andrej, I think you made a mistake. This is not what it should be. This, not this. And next morning, I was shocked. Within minutes of my comment, he had actually replied back. So the point I'm trying to say is humility. I think is the first. I think it's a necessary lesson for all of us because the rate at which you know technology is developing, and as Sunil rightly said at the beginning of the talk, human relationships are the most important which are there. So learn continuously, stay humble, and yes, that is the end of my presentation. So let me stop sharing it. Yeah. Any questions? Any thoughts? Any thing we have 20 minutes. You can ask me any question.
Left you some comments on the chat. I don't know if you saw them.
No, one second.
Yeah, you can reply later also. Not a big deal.
Yeah. So let me start with that. Which AI tool engine do you recommend analyzing data, rewriting reports or text for slides? For multiple search queries which are linked, these will be paid subscriptions. Okay. So let me tell you right now, because the field is evolving so rapidly. Okay. I have asked a couple of my customers to go for paid AI, paid AI tools, because what happens is with a paid AI tool, for instance, deep research, which I mentioned, Chat GPT, they charge you $200, and I believe it's very, very good. So where there is a serious effort which is required, and you need that, I recommend people to go for paid subscriptions. Just to share with you, so first of all, which AI tool engine do I recommend? I use all of them. I'll mention the names to you. Actually, I didn't get time to put it in the slide. You can make a note of it. So I use ChatGPT. I use Perplexity. I use Grok. I use Google's AI Studio. I use Claude, and one more I use. So, see, what is important for these tools is the context. When I say the context, means the background information that you provide to it. For instance, Google's tool AI Studio has got a 1 million words context window, which means that you can put in 1 million words as your question. Now, why is this important? Because as I mentioned, uh, these are basically stochastic answers. So the more data you give it, the more it recommends. The more it recommends you, more accurately it will be able to recommend to you. Okay. Now, for multiple search queries which are linked, see, typically what happens is that if you let's say if you take Google AI Studio, because the context size is so large, 1 million words. So, and these are, by the way, these are right. Google AI Studio is not paid. At least so far, it's not paid. It is free. So, what you can do is you can enter up to, let's say, 1 million words, which is there, and usually you will get fairly accurate answers. One thing you can do is you can also, yeah, I also use DeepSeek. No, DeepSeek is the Chinese model which I told you. I also use that. But I would not recommend using DeepSeek for any confidential data, because what happens is DeepSeek comes under the control of Chinese government. So every data that you pass to DeepSeek gets moved to the Chinese servers. But earlier, Perplexity used to have a hosted DeepSeek service. So if that is still there, you can use even DeepSeek. Okay. Now, when you mention slides, okay. So analyzing data, rewriting reports or text, I think any AI will do this. Any of these regular AIs which I mentioned to you, ChatGPT, which is there, or they will do it. Similar is with slides. You can upload slides onto, in fact, with Google AI Studio, you can even give it a YouTube link, and it will analyze the entire. I've done it multiple cases. Like my clients, when they have meeting with their collaborators, and let's say if I missed out a meeting, they will send me the YouTube, they will send me the recording. I usually analyze it first using AI. I understand what are the summary points, and then so the point is these tools are becoming more and more smarter. Number one. Number two is that multiple search queries which are linked, you will have context windows, which a large context window will help that. And yes, eventually down the line, I will move to paid subscriptions, in the sense that depending on the see, ultimately there has to be an ROI. So if the ROI of the project demands a paid subscription, yes. See, for instance, when I mentioned Grok to you, Grok 3 is the one which I use right now. Grok 4, I think they are charging $30 a month. And there's something called as Grok 4 Heavy. Now, what Grok 4 Heavy does is it charges you $300 a month, but it essentially, the minute you give it something, it fires four different agents who basically do all the work for you. They compare notes between themselves, and then they come back to you with their analysis. Okay. So my plan is that because a lot of people have asked me, okay, which of these AI tools will finally survive in the long run. So right now, I think there are five of them who are very, very strong. Grok is very strong. I mean, he's already, with, let's say, with 200,000 GPUs with with $50,000 per GPU. He's invested $10 billion. He's looking to invest another 30-40 billion dollars. So he's going to be there because it's not just the race for business. It's a race for humanity. Nobody want. I mean, they are all scared. They are very scared about China because the minute Chinese models become very popular, which is a huge possibility because of the cost. So I don't know whether I've answered your questions fully.
So is Google Gemini the same as Google AI Studio?
Google AI Studio, yeah, Google AI
Right.
Studio. See,
Google Gemini is the same
yeah,
thing.
one of the problems is they keep changing the name. So they have Gemini and they have multiple models on that.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
but I found it very useful. I have found Google very useful.
Yeah, I use Gemini, which I'm asking you is the same as
Yes,
AI.
yes, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
AI Studio, I think is the platform which is there.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
And for slides, I have used AI Studio to generate even slide presentations about.
Great. Thank you,
Okay.
Mahesh. Useful.
Oh, okay. Kapil is asking India perspective AI. Now, see, India perspective, as I mentioned to you, Indians will do well in AI. I'm not sure about India doing well in AI. Multiple reasons for that. One is I don't know whether you were there when I spoke about the compute capacity which India has. Right now, what they are talking about is 34,000 GPUs for the entire country. Whereas just one company, Grok is looking at 10 million, 1 million GPUs. Indian companies will do well. For instance, Zoho, which is one of the world's leading software, which is competing against Microsoft Office. They have come out with their own LLM models yesterday. Okay, even this Ola guy, this Bhavesh Agarwal, he has an AI called Krutim AI. I suspect the Indian government is also using a lot of AI internally, which is not spoken about, rightly so. So I think Indians will do well because see, ultimately, when we talk about your data, everything is on data. See, Indian government has released a lot of data sets which can be used for training the models. And in fact, in India, if you see our centralization GST, for instance, GST is a huge ton of data. Even if they release, let's say, the GST data to businesses, in an anonymized fashion, or medical data, our government of India has rightly come out with the Ayushman Bharat scheme, where you have a very low cost insurance model available, where you have data of millions and millions of Indians available. You know, so essentially, if the Indian government decides, we can, go for. They can make a player. In fact, I am very optimistic. I have an acronym called CHAI. CHAI means, China, America, and India. These are the three countries who, just by virtue of our sizes, we have the power to become a leader. See our own Aadhaar stack. I mean, look at the services which have been built over Aadhaar. The entire DPDP, the entire payment gateways and all. There's huge data which is there. Okay, so uh, India perspective on AI. I don't know. I can answer more questions if you want. So Ansh is asking a brief on DPDP Act applicability to AI and something on responsible AI. Yeah, Ansh, thanks. See, DPDP is Digital Personal Data Protection Act, which has been passed by the government. I think almost 1.5 year, 2 years back. The act has not been notified as yet. The problem with DPDP is that unfortunately a lot of objections have been raised to it. So essentially, what DPDP does, I'll explain in simple because I gave a talk on DPDP to a delegation of foreign computer scientists, and so DPDP is as simple as if I go to a building, and the Gurkha over there asks me to sign to enter my name and mobile number in a register, manual register. And if they decide to enter that manual register data in an Excel format, DPDP Act applies. So a lot of objections have been raised on the DPDP Act. Okay, applicability to AI. AI works on very large data sets. So the minute The minute, Indians start taking data seriously, like there is a joke, you for 50 rupees, you get CDs of tons of data of Indians, on any of these, I think Delhi mein Nehru Street and all, you get it. So data has to be protected as a precious resource. It has to be recognized. We had this funny, we've been in the computer industry for 4 decades. We had a funny instance where once a government officer walked into my office and my computer was there. He thinks, start the TV, मुझे मैच देखना है. I told him, sir, ये टीवी नहीं है, ये कंप्यूटर है. So the point is, people have to be educated. Responsible AI, yes, I understand that there are very severe, you know, breaches which can happen as if you are not responsible for with the AI. In fact, Grok 4, which I mentioned, which I consider to be one of the smartest models, but still last few days it has been misbehaving because I think some of the employees, see, every AI has what is called as guardrails. So the minute you ask it a question, how do I build a bomb? How do I let's say break into a house? It reads your text and it doesn't allow you to go ahead. So responsible AI is important only if it can be controlled. The biggest danger which American companies have with respect to, let's say, a China, is what stops China from giving their AI models to this madman, in North Korea. And he can create havoc with it, or they can, run a model which will create new variations of the COVID virus. And how do you determine whether it can be controlled or monitored? So there is a lot of debate going on in the government circles as far as AI responsibility is concerned. And unfortunately, because the pace of development is AI is so fast, people are laws are very, very difficult to be able to keep catch up with it. Ajay asking a question. Would you evaluate number of neural networks to determine which AI model you go for? No, I do not, because a neural network is something which is internal to me. I am just using whichever is the best AI for my own purpose, which will solve my problems. And see, the AI models have to be trained. So there are, for instance, if I train an AI model only on medical data, it obviously will be giving me much more better answers pertaining to medicine. Okay. Ansh says OpenAI on Azure offers subscription that claims that data enterprises data from enterprises will not be used to training OpenAI models. How is that ensured? Yeah, I think there is a setting. Even in ChatGPT, there is a setting in which you can ask it not to train your data. So this is something I think which is there in almost all the models, because for them, legal liabilities are very, very important. They don't want to get sued. Okay. Sudhir, can any of the AI tools that you mentioned can give a reliable market research data, for example, market shares, when the players involved are private companies and their sales may not be available in the public domain? If data is not available in the public domain, okay. See, because just to give one more thought, let's say our own company, MCA data. I have a private limited company, so all my data goes to MCA, Ministry of Corporate Affairs. Now that data so far is not available on the internet. But supposing the government, comes out with some scheme or with some model in which they say, okay, we will anonymize the data suitably and make it available to people, who can use these data sets. So then yes, but otherwise, if the data has not been public at all, you would get very, you would not get very much useful information. But you can give it a shot. You can give it a shot and see whether it's giving you some share, or some kind of. You can, for instance, because these tools are very smart, you can also ask them for surrogates. For example, if I want to know the sales of tires, okay. Suppose the data of tires is not available. It says, okay, then you can tell it, can you suggest to me surrogates which can give me useful indication? So it might tell you, okay, fine, I'll give you the sales of cars, and from there you can find out the sales of tires. But the point is, these AI tools are becoming better and better. I mean, that is the one directional, flow which is happening. How secure are these algorithms? When you say security, I'm not sure what exactly are you referring to. So all these things are available to you from a HTTPS service, which is a secure service. And in terms of leakage, I don't think. See, these data centers which I showed you earlier, like the Memphis data center which I showed you of XAI, these are some of the most heavily guarded, data infrastructures on earth. Like even if you are a cloud customer of, let's say, Amazon or Google, all their data centers have the highest level of security certifications which are there. So many times, in our customers, we tell them, your data is more secure on the cloud than it is there on in your own company. So that's it. Okay. Any other questions? I think I ran out of all the questions, or if I've not answered anything, we are almost touching 6, but I'm there. I can answer any questions, any suggestions. So I tell all the youngsters I meet, in fact, to get into it because see, we as a country we have unique advantages. All of us speak very good English, and all of us are naturally very sincere in what we do. So that's the reason why you have all these after COVID. You have a lot of things, a lot of companies which are shifting their data centers to India, and I think India will become a leader just by virtue of the size of smart people and the smart companies which are there. And all these things can be done. You don't need to be in New York or anywhere else. So that's it. Okay.
Great.
Any other thoughts? Email me. Any other suggestions? Let me know. Okay,
Thank you,
someone
Mahesh.
was. Chalo, chalo.
Superb.
Someone was.
Well done.
Yeah, yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. Thanks.
It was very useful and enlightening, Mahesh.
Chalo, thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you for taking your time to come to
No,
join.
not at all. Thank
Mahesh,
you.
come
Thanks,
on.
Mahesh. Thanks.
Okay, thanks.
Thanks.
See you soon again.
Mahesh, you are fantastic as always.
Arre, nahi. Thank you.
Bye. See you.
Okay.
Bye
Bye.
bye.
Hi, Veda. You found it useful?